by said town board to hear all interested
I'm
parties.
sorry, Mr. Gross, you might have an older version of that resolution. There should be.
Should be in the front, but it's in the back.
There's two. One is,
I
yeah,
apologize.
I was confused. No.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Whereas the town of Southeast is a regulated municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, as defined by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and must comply with various provisions of state pollutant discharge elimination systems, General Permit GP-0-10-002, in parentheses permit. And whereas, as an MS4 within the New York City East of Hudson watershed, the town of Southeast is required to comply with certain additional requirements of GP-0-10-002, including Part 9, A3B, which requires the town to develop and implement and enforce a program that ensures that an on-site sanitary system designed for less than 1,000 gallons per day are inspected at a minimum frequency of every 5 years, and, where necessary, maintained or rehabilitated. And whereas Chapter 97, quote, on-site sanitary systems, unquote, is intended to implement the provisions of Part 9, A3B of SPEDS General Permit GP-0-10-002. And whereas a resolution having been adopted by the Town Board of the Town of Southeast for a public hearing to be held by said Town Board to hear all interested parties on a proposal local law to create Chapter 97, quote, on-site sanitary systems, unquote, and whereas notice of said public hearing was advertised in an official newspaper of the Town of Southeast in the manner prescribed by law, and such public hearing was held on April 28, 2011, and whereas the Town Board has prepared an environmental assessment form under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and determined that the adoption of Chapter 97 would not create a potential significant adverse environmental impacts, and that an environmental impact statement is not required. And whereas it is the sense of this Town Board that the proposed local law, will promote the general health, safety, and welfare of the public, and is intended to further protect water quality within the Town of Southeast. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby adopts local law number 5, thank you, of 2011, pursuant of the Municipal Home Rule Law, creating Chapter 97 of the Southeast Town Code, entitled, quote, on-site sanitary systems, unquote, and be it further resolved that the town clerk be and hereby is authorized and directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and in the code book of the Town of Southeast, and to give due notice of the adoption of said local law to the Secretary of State of New York within the time required by law.
Thanks, Roger. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Cohen seconds. Roll call vote, please. Ruth.
Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak? Yes. Councilman Yee?
Yes.
Councilman Gross?
Yes?
Supervisor Wright?
Yes.
Carried by 5-0.
Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Gary. Item 6, local law to streamline the planning and zoning process. You have in your materials a resolution to declare lead agency to revise the zoning code of the Town of Southeast. Now, I'll read this resolution. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Southeast is considering the adoption of a local law to amend Chapter 138 of the Town Code titled Zoning. And whereas the Town Board is the only agency that has the authority to amend the Town Code, and therefore no other agencies are considered potential involved agencies, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 617.6V1 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby declares itself lead agency for purposes of SECRA for this unlisted action. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Yee seconds. Roll call vote, please. Ruth.
Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak? Yes. Councilman Yee?
Yes.
Councilman Gross?
Yes?
Supervisor Wright?
Yes.
Carried, vote of 5-0.
And I move that we authorize the supervisor, which is me, to execute a letter to the Putnam County Division of Planning and Development indicating passage of this law. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 7, local law to amend the architectural review of projects. Graham, would you like to brief the board and brief folks about this?
Yes, certainly. The local law to amend the architectural review of projects was discussed at the last work session. What is on the agenda tonight, you set the public hearing for that draft local law for May 19th, and now this item is to, again, declare lead agency under SECRA and to circulate the referral to Putnam County Planning for its review. As requested at the last work session, we did amend the provisions of the code. You should have that amended text before you. You also notice that we did separate out the previous provision to streamline the planning and zoning process from the ARB, just so that if we need additional time to hammer out the details on the ARB review process, we could do that without holding up the other process. We used a similar concept in the ARB amendments identifying minor and major projects. Minor projects would continue to be reviewed by the ARB with a report back to the planning board. Major projects would be reviewed by the ARB and then reported up to the town board. So we felt that was a fair or a more equitable distribution of the workload, if you will, and it would reflect the board's stated desire at the last work session to really have some say in major projects throughout the town. So I hope you like the draft language. Obviously, if we want to make further tweaks, we can do that following the public hearing on May 19th. These are just procedural actions you're taking tonight. Taking these actions does not require any other, or does not imply, acceptance of the draft law. So,
Understood. Thanks, Graham. Councilwoman Hudak, would you like to read this resolution, please?
And this is
Item 7,
7A. Resolution to declare lead agency. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Southeast is considering the adoption of a local law to amend Chapter 3 of the Town Code, Architectural Review Board, and whereas the Town Board is the only agency that has the authority to amend the Town Code, and therefore no other agencies are considered potential involved agencies, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 617.6 lowercase b1 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECA, the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby declares itself lead agency for purposes of SECA for this unlisted action.
Second. Roll call vote, please, Ruth.
Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak?
Yes.
Councilman Yee?
Yes.
Councilman Gross?
Yes.
Supervisor Wright?
Yes.
Carried by a vote of 5-0.
Motion carries unanimously, and I move that we authorize the supervisor, again being me, to execute a letter to the Putnam County Division of Planning and Development to advise them. Councilman Gross seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 8, Campus at Fields Corner Extension of Wetlands Permit. Bob, would you like to read this resolution, please?
You gave me the long one. Okay. Whereas Putnam Seabury Partners, LP, the applicant, is the owner of premises located in the northwest corner of the town of Southeast near the intersection of Route 312 and Pugsley Road, which is tax map number 45-1-4, 45-1-5, 45-1-8, 45-1-12, and 45-1-13, the project site. And whereas the applicant processed several applications with the town of Southeast for various approvals associated with the development of the campus at Field Corners, a mixed-use development of approximately 143 housing units and 237,000 square feet of commercial space. And whereas all appropriate approvals were granted by the Town Board, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, ARB, and Historic Sites Commission following an exhaustive environmental review under seeker, and whereas in a resolution dated September 25th, 2003, the Town Board permitted the applicant to proceed before the Conservation Commission with its previously filed application under Local Law Number 2 of 1977, as amended by Local Law Number 2 of 1984, the Freshwater and Wetlands Protection Law of the Town of Southeast, it being specifically recognized by the Town Board pertinent to the Town Attorney's opinion, and after due deliberation thereof, that Local Law 9 of 2003, which established the current Chapter 78 Freshwater Wetlands Ordinance, does not apply to the applicant's project in accordance with Section 15 of said Local Law 9. And whereas on June 22nd, 2004, the Conservation Commission voted 5-1 with no one abstaining, for a positive determination recommending that the Southeast Town Board approve the application, subject to the conditions that all work being done in accordance with said plans, and whereas in Resolution Number 52-2004, granting a wetland permit for the Putnam Seabury Partners dated August 19, 2004, the Town Board upheld the June 22, 2004 determination of the Conservation Commission to grant a Town of Southeast Wetlands permit to allow for the A, widening of an existing road in the wetlands area, and B, roadway improvements in the buffer area, and C, grading in the buffer area. And whereas on June 25, 2007, the Town of Southeast issued a wetlands permit in accordance with the above approvals, which is set to expire on June 25, 2011, and whereas pertinent to 615.5C26, the renewal of a permit is a Type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and no further environmental review is required. Now therefore be it resolved that pertinent to a stipulation of settlement in the case in caption Putnam Seabury Partners, LP, versus Town of Southeast et al., index number 09-13084, Supreme Court of Westchester County, so ordered by the Honorable Joan B. Lefkowitz of the Supreme Court of the State of New York on December 10, 2010. The Town of Southeast wetland permit is hereby extended to December 31, 2020, or until such time, no earlier than December 31, 2014, that the applicant exercises his right to abandon, vacate, and/or terminate the campus subdivision plat.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Ruth.
Who seconded that?
Councilman Yee.
Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak?
Yes.
Councilman Yee?
Yes.
Councilman Gross?
Yes.
Supervisor Rice?
Yes.
Carried by a vote of 5-0.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 9, Putnam County MS4 Coordinating Committee, IMA, or intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Brewster. Dwight, would you like to read item 9, please?
Sure. Resolution regarding participation of the Village of Brewster in the Putnam County MS4 Coordinating Committee. Whereas the town of Southeast is required to obtain coverage under the New York State DEC State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or SPEDIS, general permit for stormwater discharges from municipal separate stormwater systems, MS4s, GP-0-10-002, because of its location within the New York City drinking water supply watershed. And whereas since 2005, the town has participated with other Putnam County communities in Putnam County MS4 Stormwater Coordinating Committee, PC MS4CC, under an intermunicipal agreement signed by the Town of Southeast. And whereas the PC MS4CC explores opportunities for cost sharing and information sharing and has received several New York State grants for implementation of measures that will benefit all communities. And whereas by resolution dated March 16, 2011, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Brewster has petitioned to become a member of the intermunicipal agreement. And whereas under Article 2, Membership, Subpart 2-2.3, new members of the bylaws established for conducting the business of the PC MS4CC, prospective new members of the intermunicipal agreement, must be approved by a majority of the legislative bodies of the municipalities who are members at the time of the application. And whereas the Town of Southeast, recognizing the value of a cooperative approach to stormwater management and recognizing that the Village of Brewster is wholly contained within the Town of Southeast, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast, being a member of the intermunicipal agreement, hereby approves of the membership of the Village of Brewster in the intermunicipal agreement establishing the PC MS4CC.
Thanks, Dwight. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Hudak seconds. Roll call vote, please, Ruth.
Okay. Councilman Cullen?
Yes.
Councilman Yee?
Mr. Gross is next.
No, actually, I'm next.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilwoman